Greetings. Welcome to the Richard Dolan Show, where every week we fight the good fight. Happy to be here. This is a new thing for me. I normally will, if I'm doing a Richard Dolan show, it's either live audio, but more often than not, I do pre-records. I've never done live video for the Richard Dolan Show. This is the first. Very happy to introduce my guest for this program. This is Travis Taylor. Travis was most famously known until now for his show Rocket City Rednecks, one of the coolest names for a TV show out there. But Travis is an aerospace engineer. He's an optical scientist, science fiction author, and written a lot of technical papers. He is right now the lead personality on the new series for the History Channel called Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And I was actually fortunate to see a couple of episodes in advance. It's definitely going to be a noteworthy show. And that is his latest background, his latest achievement. The one thing you notice when you look at Travis's education is that, as we like to say in the Northeast, this man is wicked smart. He's got a bunch of degrees. Looks like 2 PhDs from what I'm checking out here, a couple of master's degrees. And you know when they say this ain't rocket science? Well, this guy is a rocket scientist for real. So I'm really going to enjoy it. And the thing about him that actually makes him so cool, in my opinion, is that he has taken a dive into the weird. And we're going to talk about Skinwalker Ranch tonight. So Travis, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Same here. Absolutely. Same here. So let's just dive right into the Skinwalker situation, because, I mean, a lot of people have called this the weirdest place on Earth. I just recently heard George Knapp once again refer to it in that capacity. He's someone who knows a lot about it. And everything that we hear about this place in Utah just makes people wonder. This is a very bizarre place. You've got skeptics out there still saying that nothing to it. I would love to hear you just go into your take on the Skinwalker Ranch, your take on what it was like to participate in this TV program, and in fact, your own scientific investigation into the Skinwalker Ranch.
Right. So I'm a scientist by trade. I've been studying my whole life. I went to college for 26 years, to get 2 PhDs and 3 master's degrees and a dual degree in my bachelor's. And I've studied since I was a kid, though. When I was like 10 years old, my dad gave me a copy of von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods. And my dad was a machinist on the Saturn V's that went to the moon.
Wow.
And so I grew up in the space area here in Huntsville, Alabama. That's where the rockets were built that went to the moon. And so I've always had this, environment to want to understand these bigger things.
Sure.
And of course, reading Van Daniken's book from early on, it kind of gave me that inquisitive, what if what we think might not be all there is to it. And that led me actually to being a pretty decent scientist, because I never take anybody's word for anything. And of course, it irritates people too at times. But, the point of being a scientist is, okay, when somebody tells you a story, you have to remember it's just a story. Now, you can say it's data to lead you into a direction to go and do some studying into that story. But until you have hard data and experiment you can repeat and get the same results from, then you don't really have anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my biggest problems with the whole UFO community is MUFON wants to accept every eyewitness account as evidence. Well, it's evidence in a court of law, but it's not evidence for a scientific paper. And so that is what I'm trying to bring to this is let's do this right so that nobody, skeptics or whatever, can tell us that if we find something, we didn't really find something, right? Nobody can tell me that, they might tell me I didn't see it, but then I'll say, okay, well, these instruments did. And here's the data. You can go repeat it. Now, so I've worked pretty much my whole life in the space and defense industry, and I started doing TV stuff in the early 2000s, and it's been going on for the last couple of decades. And I've been writing science fiction novels and things like that. And the thing that really got me into this was after 9/11, I wrote a textbook on how we would defend the planet from a military and civil defense perspective if we were invaded by aliens. And nobody's ever taken it seriously. And I had some people in the intelligence community and the defense community ask me if I would look into it just as an exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out as such an interesting exercise that I actually even teach a class to the Air Force for it every year in the spring out of my book, Alien Invasion. And that has gotten a lot of people interested in calling me and thinking that I'm an expert in space and alien warfare. Number one, I don't know if there's such a thing, but I guess that's me, right?
I'm going to guess if you dig deep into the black budget world, hey, there's probably a couple of people who would love to have a conversation with you. That's just my opinion.
My day job is with the Department of Defense, and I do speak with those people. And from everything that I can tell you, we don't have this hidden book in a safe somewhere. It says, in case of aliens, break glass, right? Most of the generals and so on that I've interviewed and worked with over my 20-something years with the DOD is that we'll treat it like whatever the invasion is when it happens, and we will have to react to it. Well, as we're seeing with this current virus thing, sometimes reaction would be better if we were prepared for it ahead of time. Like now we're retooling our factories to make ventilators and that sort of thing. Well, if aliens show up from another star system, we're not going to have time to retool our factories, right? And so
there'll be a lot of time for people to run around pulling the hair out of their heads, so we'll have that going on.
That's about right. And so people have tended to look to me when we talk seriously about, okay, is there anything scientific that we can do in terms of, say, the UFO phenomena and these other weird phenomena? And when the new owner of the ranch bought it from Bigelow in 2016, he started phase 1 of his research effort. And the research effort then was to observe quietly and hidden. And for 2 years, they observed the ranch and took video, infrared data, and other data without poking at it. And they saw some things, and they had some things occur, and they reached a point where they couldn't explain anything they were seeing. And so
I just want to jump in here for a second, because this is a really key point. That owner's name, he's now out there. His name is Brandon Fugel. He just did an interview with George Knapp on Coast the other night. So people know who he is. And he, like Robert Bigelow, who he bought the ranch from, is a real estate developer. He's a very successful man. He's obviously had a very, very excellent career. He knows a lot of powerful people. And I heard him describe how this place has now spooked him. And he doesn't seem like the kind of person who would just throw things out there for hyperbole. It does not strike me that way at all. And I'm glad we're moving on to talking about the Skinwalker, because, they brought you in because of your scientific training and because you've got a very strong, I think, healthy, skeptical attitude about all things related to whether it's UFOs or the paranormal in general. So you went in there and you actually met with Mr. Fugel's team, who was already there. He had some very competent people who had already been studying this. Can you describe that whole interaction? I mean, some of this is covered in the TV show, and TV shows are one thing, and then there's the whole rest of the reality that goes on. What happened when you started looking into Skinwalker?
Yeah, well, so that first meeting, they told me all these crazy things, showed me some pictures and some videos, and my first impression was that you guys are nuts, right? I kept telling them, well, okay, maybe there's something out there that's toxic or intoxicating, and it's making people hallucinate, or there's a natural phenomena, or maybe there's a secret government program going on, and this is a side effect of it, or there's a secret corporate program going on, and this is a side effect of it. That was my original thought. And so, and I talked with Brandon Fugel at length, and he is a very religious person, and he wants to get to the answers to the bigger questions. Is there God? Why are we here? Are we alone in the universe? That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the reasons he bought the ranch. Is it's sort of a hot spot, and he thought maybe we can find some answers there.
Gotcha.
And so they reached the point in this phase 1 of observation that they had gone about as far as they could go, and it was time to bring in the outside people, the History Channel, let them see what's going on. But the History Channel told us, I think it's time that you go from observation to something bigger. And they decided they needed to reach an experimentation phase. So they needed an experimental scientist that could come in and help. And that's when they called me.
Gotcha.
And so I came in, and my first impression was, other than you guys are nuts, but if there is something here, let's see if we can stimulate it. My grandmother had a saying that she told me all the time I was growing up, that a hornet's nest isn't fun until you poke it with a stick.
Yeah, that seems like that's a philosophy that will take you far in this world.
Well, until you get stung too many times. And so my thoughts, though, were it was time to poke the ranch with a stick and see if it would poke back.
Yeah.
And so I get out there, and originally thinking, okay, History Channel signed us up for 8 hours for the first season. How are we going to find 8 hours of acting like this is real intense and we're not finding anything, and it's just going to be like doing Ancient Aliens over and over again or something like that. But it turns out I was not there for 30 minutes when strange physical phenomena started occurring that with scientific instruments I could not find the origin of or explain. And that continued 24/7 every day. I was there for 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and there's really no need for us to go into the whole backstory, like the whole Robert Bigelow era during the 1990s and early 2000s. He had the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS. He had very competent scientists at that time studying this ranch, this property, and as I'm sure you know, they were absolutely mystified by what was going on there. In fact, a couple of them described this ranch as having some kind of precognitive sentience that was always multiple steps ahead of the scientists who were trying to do their own observation and experimentation there.
Well, let me tell you.
What you found here, anything like that?
Yeah, let me tell you, Richard, when I first got out there and had this initial meeting with the team, the new team, they said, well, so you'll find that when you get out there, the ranch reacts to different people.
Uh-huh.
And I did a double take, and I looked at them. I said, you guys are telling me this place, it's an inanimate object, it's a bunch of dirt, with trees and a river on it, that it's going to react to me being there. And they said, I know you think we're nuts, but just wait. And honestly, I don't think they're nuts anymore, unless I'm nuts too now at this point.
It's amazing.
And I'll tell you,
you're the perfect guy to bring in for this, in my opinion, because you've got fantastic scientific credentials. You didn't really seem to have a preconceived. You didn't have an interest in it going in. As I said, you had a healthy skepticism, and you're just like the next new qualified scientist going in to do some work, and now you're getting similar effects. So can you describe any of the things that you experienced there or that were experienced by the team?
Well, I don't want to give any spoilers away from the show, but one thing I will tell you, though, is so it's the difference between what we're doing and what Bigelow's team did. I actually talked with Colm Kelleher today through texting, and and he and I told him that what Bigelow's guys did, including him, only thing that anybody knows about it is in him and George Knapp's book. There is no scientific data that has been released. Bigelow tucked it away under his mattress somewhere and has never let anybody see it. And so I told Colm that that to me, it might as well not even exist, because you can tell me about it all day long, but without giving us the experimental data and things that we can then go and see, verify, repeat, then it's just stories. It's campfire stories, right? It's stories my big brother would tell me in the woods around the campfire to scare me at night when we were camping out. So what we're doing different is we got a camera crew right there 24/7 with us. I had cameras everywhere except in my bathroom and in my bedroom, in the trailer that I lived in while I was out there on the ranch. And if something happened, there would be multiple cameras going, multiple audio sensors going, multiple scientific instruments going. And let me tell you, something happens more often than not. And it's baffling to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I will also tell you this. In fact, I'll go ahead and say this now while I'm thinking about it. There are a lot of people, like with the Storm Area 51 thing that went on a few months back and so on. They might think, oh, well, I can Google where the ranch is. Let's go sneak on it and try to see something ourselves. There were people, including myself, during this research that were seriously injured. And we have no idea what the phenomenology is that caused these injuries. Myself, personally, I had serious radiation sickness, and we never found the source of the radiation. There are other things that happen. We're doing scientific experiments that can be dangerous if you don't know where they are and if we don't know that you're there. And it's also a ranch in the middle of the desert. There's mountain lions and snakes and toxic chemicals that may come up out of cave holes.
Right.
You could have cave-ins. And then there's armed guards protecting the place from whatever they might need to protect it from. And we wouldn't know, if you didn't tell us you're coming, that you're not something dangerous. So please don't try to go out and sneak out and get a peek. We're going to show you everything. The cameras are on, and we're going to show you. So,
well, I'm going to try to pry something out of you before we're done with this interview, sir. But I just should let people know that the show airs tonight, shortly after we're done with this interview. It'll be 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central. It is on History Channel. It is called Secrets of the Skinwalker Ranch. So people really ought to check this out. As I mentioned, I've actually seen the first 2. History Channel was very nice to me. They sent me a couple of episodes in advance. And I don't want to give anything away here either, but I do think it's noteworthy to say that your team did very quickly run into some very odd things in terms of, you had a variety of technologies. I'm sure you can probably talk about this, that were employed to detect things. Can we get a little bit into that?
Yeah, so we used scientific instruments that are NIST traceable, meaning that they can be calibrated or checked with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So that way people go buy the same instrument if they want to do the experiment in the future and repeat it. We're doing everything in a way that's repeatable. Now, that assumes the ranch will repeat for them. That's a whole other thing. But that we used...
You finally went there. Assume the ranch lets it be repeatable.
Well, after you watch all 8 of the episodes, you'll decide we're either all crazy or the ranch is crazy, and I haven't decided which.
Okay.
But so the experiments, the equipment we had ranged in instruments that would measure all of the electromagnetic spectrum, from very long RF wavelengths through microwaves to visible and infrared light, all the way out to gamma and X-rays. Right. We also had particle counters. We had volatile organic compound detectors, meaning toxic chemicals and organic things like bacteria and fungi. Mm-hmm. We had ground penetrating radar. We had above ground radars. We had gravitational detection equipment. We even had some very rudimentary time measurement equipment. I'm hoping to, in the future, do something much more advanced.
Wait, I'm sorry. Rudimentary. What did you just say?
Time measurement.
Time. You did say time measurement.
Yeah.
Meaning what exactly?
Well, precise clocks. Because I have a theory that if there are gravitational effects, which we measured, then you might see time dilation or at least time inaccuracy.
I was wondering if that's where you were going. That's very interesting. So
it's crazy is what it is. It's more than interesting.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, look, everyone who studied this in a lot of detail, and I'm no expert, but I know that time moves differently on Earth's surface than it does as you move out away from Earth's because the gravitational effect. So, but you wouldn't, that effect is very, very small by any measurement that we can detect. Do you have reason to believe that there's greater time effects down at the range?
Let me give you a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to take the clock on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise and then place a clock at the event horizon of the warp bubble right as they went into faster than light travel, the clocks would be different. and that's something really intriguing to me.
Mhm.
And I'll leave it at that at this point. But things like that that could come up that we would like to try and get a better handle on.
You kill me, man.
I'll point out,
So
let me
you
point
did,
out, Richard,
go on, please.
that
Yes.
on the Tic Tac and Gimbal and Go Fast videos,
Yeah.
when I did the analysis on those for Ancient Aliens, I was the first person to point out that there was an event horizon around those vehicles.
That was you. Fascinating.
And that means that there's some type of other propulsion that isn't what we're used to.
Yeah. Yeah, something that manipulates the space-time fabric or space-time metric or whatever terminology someone wants to use to describe it.
Right.
Somehow it's being affected. It's something totally unlike anything that we study here.
So I can tell you, and you'll see episode 4 is where you'll really see it. But we had multiple witnesses in the double digits, multiple cameras, multiple sensors. Every sensor that I just mentioned detect an anomaly or a phenomena or whatever you want to call it that is completely unexplainable by man-made technology.
Okay, so
completely unexplainable.
If I may, again, I know you don't want to give away what's going to be happening on the 8 episodes. I understand that. But we can perhaps talk about the types of phenomena. So, for example, historically at Skinwalker, people would see all kinds of things. I mean, UFO sightings, yes, absolutely. But it goes so far beyond that. Strange creatures, poltergeists were reported. Portals were discussed by the scientists who were there, or at least that's what they claimed to have seen. Cattle mutilations, animal mutilations, that were, some of which were really inexplicable. All of it in this very, very tightly confined geographical area. Were there any of these types of things that you guys uncovered? And then I want to follow up with that and ask you, after all of your time spent there, do you believe that there is an active intelligence that is behind this phenomenon, or intelligences? What do you think is going on?
Well, so first of all, to answer your first part of that, out of all those phenomena you just mentioned, in the first 5 seconds of the first episode of the show, you'll get to see one of them, of the first episode tonight. And if you saw the episode, you know what I'm talking about.
Indeed.
And it's startling. And of the other phenomena you mentioned, I'm surprised you didn't mention the hitchhiker, and I'll talk about that later. But what I will tell you is what I've told some other people is, in the last 6 months of my life, I've had more extreme, terrifying nightmares on a repeatable, occurring basis than I had in the previous 50 years of my life. Put together.
Wow.
Put together. And in many cases, especially on the ranch, almost every night it occurred. And I think it was from a phenomena occurring out there, but I haven't proven that yet. But in 99% of those, if I didn't wake up, in a terrified sweat, screaming or whatever, I was woken by the ranch dog who liked to sleep under my trailer. And he would always wake up barking at something, and I would get up and go out and find a measurement on a new phenomenon. It seemed like it happened almost every time the dog barked. I would find some new thing I didn't know about before.
So you'd go out there with instrumentation of some sort and detect something very unusual, you're saying?
Usually I would jump up, throw on some shorts and a T-shirt and grab something and go look. And then if I would see or hear something, by that time, the security guard would have seen the motion and come out with his shotgun or his rifle one, making sure I wasn't getting eaten by monsters or whatever. And then we would start looking into it. And then I would open up the other equipment and start looking at stuff. In many cases, I found strange things I can't explain.
So you're measuring with what exactly? You're measuring for radiation? So like with Geiger counters or other types? And what other types of things are you measuring for?
You name it, we measured for it. Broadcast electromagnetics, whether it's just a straight magnetic field, electromagnetic field, radio waves, microwaves, optical systems. We measured seismic anomaly, or 4 seismic anomalies. acoustic waves in the ground. We had microphones and cameras and infrared sensors out. We had game cameras with motion detection systems on them. I mean, we had a plethora of instruments that were all over this thing, and there was never a lack of something crazy to look at or to talk about. Like I said, when I first started, I was afraid I'd be out there for 4 months and not find anything. Mm-hmm. But instead, I was out there for 4 months, and I need another 4 months at a minimum just to even understand what I saw in those 4 months.
That's incredible.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah. And one of the things that they did tell me I could say, I'm not going to say much about it, except that there are 14 seconds of my life that's missing, and we have that measured with instruments and documented, and we can't figure out where I was for 14 seconds. But I know where I was, and I told them what happened, but none of the instruments saw me during this time.
Okay, that is fascinating, and this is, I assume, why you want to get into time dilation or time measurement.
Yes, it is one of the reasons.
So, is it possible that you disappeared for 14 seconds? What do you think?
Well, I remember I have perfect memories and recollection of what I did for those 14 seconds, mm-hmm. but all the cameras and things do not show me doing these things. So that's what we can't. So either I was dreaming, lying, hallucinating, whatever. But it's funny because as soon as we kind of had a briefing every morning, if something happened, I would call in the camera crew and the directors and all them and say, hey guys, this happened. How are we going to cover that, in interviews or whatever today? And that first thing that morning, I told them the exact time, because every time something happened, I had a habit of saying, hey Siri, what time is it? Mm-hmm. And then Siri would tell me what time, and and then it would be audible. The microphones would pick it up, and not only do they have the clocks on the cameras, but they also had Apple time, telling us what time it was. And so I knew exactly when it occurred. I told them exactly what I did in great detail. It's like, oh yeah, okay, well we'll find the camera footage, and it was not in the camera footage, and the time that this was happening is missing. The complete timestamp's gone.
That's fascinating, and this is one of these things. You're talking about earlier on lack of data, reproducible data, and how a lot of UFO reports don't really constitute data. And I get that, but here's the thing: like with science and UFOs, or science and Skinwalker, as I see it, I want to know what you think about this. Like when we're doing science, there are certain presuppositions, it seems to me, that every scientist is going to have, namely that the scientist is pretty much in control of the experiment. Whatever it is you're researching, whether it's a virus or astrophysics, you create the protocols, the parameters of the experiment. But what if the thing that you're studying is actually smarter than you are? Like what if it's actually very intelligent, precognitively intelligent, as I hear again and again regarding Skinwalker, and is just messing with you. Have you thought about this? And that leads to my other question is, do you think that there is an intelligence in at the Skinwalker Ranch?
Right. So there are plenty of science fiction type theories that I have and the team has, and we actually had hours and hours of discussing, what we thought. Each one of us had our own viewpoints and so on. The trickster is one. There's a lot of history, American Native sort of pseudo, not quite ancient but old history, hundreds of years old, of a trickster type being. And then the Utes actually have what they call their first man, who brought them there. It was a sky god that traveled on a rainbow. And now when you put a sky god that travels on a rainbow together with a trickster, anybody that's watched any Marvel movies of late knows it sounds like they're describing Thor and Loki.
That's right.
And to me, that's crazy, except we found some things that were hundreds and hundreds of years old, maybe thousands of years old around there, that sort of lend to that theory. But then there's other theories too that, maybe in the 50s, there were a lot of scientific papers written in the region about thinking seismic anomalies would create these strange phenomena and effects on people.
Like earth lights, that type of thing?
Yeah, earth lights and things like that. But never could they correlate seismic activities with the phenomena. And so they kind of threw that out sometime in the late 60s. I've been going through reading all the scientific papers that were written about the ranch. And surprisingly, there have been a lot of credible scientific papers written on the area. Mm-hmm. So there are other theories. One thing I will point out that kind of goes to a piece of data to make your theory. A lot of people forget this or don't know this, but if you look at the ranch from Google Earth, the Uinta Basin, it looks like maybe it was 1 million years ago. I don't know how long ago. A meteor came in from the east and crashed into the earth, creating the Uinta Basin. Mm-hmm. And if you look, the salt flats to the west look like they were splashed out across the desert mountains, and a lot of minerals. For example, gilsonite is found there. What we make asphalt out of. And the only place you find gilsonite is at meteor impact. There's only 1 or 2 other places in the world where you find it.
Right.
So I believe the entire Uinta Basin was created by an impact of some sort. Now, was it a directed impact? Was it serendipitous? Was it natural from debris in space? You could throw a science fiction ancient alien thing in there that was crashed spacecraft. You can do whatever you want to. That might explain some things. The way the experiments we did behaved, because the results were always kind of random, but I'm not sure if they were completely random. It looks like there is someone responding to you if you went to another country and didn't speak a word of the language, and you started saying random words to this person, how would they respond to you? They would look at you strange and try to respond back to you, and neither one of you would understand each other.
Uh-huh.
And
do you think that's what's going on potentially at the Skinwalker Ranch?
I don't know, mm-hmm. but it could explain something. It's one of the, if I have a stack of hypotheses that's 50 foot tall, that one's in the top 3 inches. So
we're talking about, a real potential. It seems like you're very open, very, very open. The impression I get to the idea that this ranch does have an intelligence that's operating there. Is that accurate for me to say that you're open to that?
No, I would say that's one of the hypotheses. What I would say is the phenomena on the ranch is real. I don't know what it is and what's causing it, but I'm hoping that we can get more data and more experiments that lead us to understanding what it is. Here's what I will tell you. I'm 80 to 85% convinced it's not a natural phenomenon. But Mother Nature throws stuff at us every day that we didn't know about before.
Right.
I am 99.9% convinced it's not anything that mankind has created, because the phenomena are beyond any technology that we could create to reproduce those phenomena. So
that's a really interesting point. So potentially natural, potentially sounds like a slim possibility, but you keep it open that there is a, let's say, conventional or maybe an interesting conventional series.
Super top secret corporate or government program. There's a lot of oil well drilling out there. Could the oil companies be doing something new and not telling anybody it's proprietary that's causing these phenomena? But that wouldn't explain the ancient stories, because the Indians have been seeing the natives have been seeing this phenomena for hundreds of years.
Right.
So the evidence doesn't fit.
Yeah, if you keep it even to the last few decades where this has really gotten a lot of attention, you're thinking maybe there's an outside chance that there's a human contribution to what's going on there that we don't yet understand, something classified or something corporate, but it doesn't sound like that's your number one go-to.
Well, the problem with that idea, and that was my original thinking until I saw the phenomenon with my own eyes, and we have no science that explains this phenomenon. If if there's a top secret organization that has this kind of technology, then it's criminal. And conspiracies are illegal. Things can be classified based on the National Security Act, but if it's a conspiracy, somebody's going to get caught up with, and it's going to, they eventually will be caught. So I really just don't believe that this is a man-made thing. It's something we don't know what it is yet.
I guess I would just add that conspiracies are illegal. That doesn't mean that they don't happen all the time. And there might even be legal illegalities going on within the labyrinth of our Black budget community. But that's a whole other conversation. I'm with you in thinking that the phenomenon doesn't seem like it's human created.
No,
it just seems beyond that.
It makes no sense.
But you're saying 99% certain that it's what were you saying? Oh, that it wasn't anything that we were doing. But it seemed, so like I said, there seems to be an intelligence there. I'm not sure if I got you to answer that. Do you think there's
well,
does it seem like a consciousness to you that's there? Or am I just pushing here too hard on this?
No, I don't think we have enough data yet to say, or I personally don't have enough data to make that conclusion.
Gotcha.
While it is one of my top 1-inch science fiction hypotheses, it's not anything that I have any data to back up.
Let me ask you this. Have you wondered, we'll just spitball it here for the last 10 minutes or so. How about that? If there is an intelligence there, how would that even operate at this place? I mean, people can say, well, but these would be aliens that would be, I mean, it's entirely feasible that they could be 100 steps ahead of us, but there's something that seems way, way beyond us. Would you say that at least it seems to be way ahead of us?
Oh, absolutely. Whatever it is way ahead of us. And so here's the thing. Somehow or other, it interacts differently with different people. And some people, and I mentioned this earlier, some people, once they go to the ranch follows them home. And we call that the hitchhiker phenomenon.
Right.
And since I've returned from the ranch, crazy things have followed me 1,000 miles away to North Alabama. My brand new car turns itself on and off. Radio changed channels for no reason. My really funny story is I have seat warmers in the front seats, front bucket seats, and I was taking my daughter to a basketball practice a month or so back, and it was cold, and I turned both the butt heaters on, as we call them, and my butt heater turned itself immediately off. I pressed the button again, it turned itself immediately off. It did it several times.
Right.
My daughter stayed on. Well, my daughter's got her learner's permit, so I let her drive on the way home.
Oh.
And on the way home, the driver's side butt heater worked perfectly, and the passenger side butt heater would not stay on.
Sounds like it's messing with you, man.
Little things like that. Yeah, the Loki trickster type stuff.
Right.
And it's odd. And
that's beyond,
like
that's beyond aliens. That's like classic ghost haunting poltergeist types of stories, right?
Yeah. Well, so how do we know that some of those stories aren't based on some kind of physical phenomena that we can actually measure? One of the things I think about, what physics do we understand that says if something happens at point A, then later something at point B that was once at point A can then be interacted with? Quantum entanglement is what I just described. So you can have two components that are entangled in one location and separate them by the distance of the universe. And if you interact with one, you interact with the other. And our brains are quantum computers. We're learning now that the processors in our brain, there are these little proteins called microtubulins. And the tubulin proteins are quantum processors. And so when you're doing deductive reasoning and reduction, all that's doing it through quantum physics calculations. And so if something's going to communicate with us from an advanced culture, it's probably going to be direct to mind quantum entanglement. And so if we got entangled with whatever this phenomena is, then you will be entangled with it until, for whatever reason, that entanglement is broken. And so I think that this hitchhiker phenomena can be explained through quantum physics.
It's fascinating.
And it's crazy.
I've never heard anyone describe it in exactly that way. And at least on first listening to me, I'm thinking that makes a lot of sense. Speaking as a non-scientist, but it sounds like that could be a really productive way for people to investigate this in the future.
Well, and so we actually have some experiments to do to test for that kind of connectivity.
That's the thing. I mean, this is some really advanced stuff. I mean, this just further confirms my own opinion, frankly, that, you know, scientists who dismiss UFOs as non-scientific, or places like the Skinwalker Ranch, I have come firmly to believe that it is this type of phenomenon that it takes us right to the leading edge of so many of the most interesting questions we can be asking about our world. And in my opinion, that makes it more worthy, not less worthy, of study and analysis. So frankly, I'm really glad to hear this theory of yours. I'm probably gonna have to hear you say it again before it settles into my brain. But
I'm gonna have to tell myself it 100 more times too. But now let me tell you on what you just said, and it really irritates me as a scientist who studied to be a scientist since I was 10 years old. Carl Sagan did a big disservice to the scientific community by making the comment that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Boy, did he.
The scientific method does not say anything about extraordinary claims or extraordinary evidence. What it says is you form a hypothesis based on your literature research, you design an experiment that can be repeated by your peers, and then you report the results of that experiment so your peers can then go and try and repeat and verify and validate your experimental results. That's the scientific method, not extraordinary claims and extraordinary evidence. And so you on the same paragraph, I would say the same scientist will quote something about, oh, that's fringe science. There's no such thing as fringe science. Science is following the scientific method. It don't matter what topic it is. And that's what we're doing a big disservice we've done to 2 or 3 generations of scientists in their training. And I'm hoping to open people's minds a little bit about, hey, if we only look for our keys under the street lamp, we'll probably never find our damn keys.
Absolutely. Science has nothing to do with the subject. It's how that subject is approached. And any subject in this world can be approached scientifically or non-scientifically. And so that's wonderful for you to say that. Hey, we've got, believe it or not, 2.5 minutes left in this.
You were worried 45 minutes was too long.
I had a feeling it wouldn't be long enough, to be honest with you, but that's what we've got here. So I just want people to know again, Travis, you're leading in the History Channel's new show called Secret of the Skinwalker Ranch. It airs in about an hour and 15 minutes from now on the History Channel. That is 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Just want to give that plug for you because you deserve it, man.
Oh, thank you very much.
Is there any other way that you have people to get in touch with you in terms of the work that you are doing? And I guess I should also ask, are you planning, is there going to be a season 2 of this? I guess maybe it's too early to tell, or do you know? And in addition to that, what other projects you have going on?
Well, so no, I don't know about season 2 yet. And that's usually always based on ratings and so on.
Right, sure.
But I still plan to maintain the research effort, whether it's on TV or not. While it's not part of my day job, there are crossover correlations. If I found something that's advanced technology, certainly the Department of Defense would be interested in knowing what I found. And also commercial industry and so on. So I think there's something to this. I don't know what it is yet. I'm hoping that we'll all stay tuned and find out.
Yes, as do I, sir. This is a slightly shorter than average show that we're doing. We agreed that we're going to do 45 minutes, and that is what we've got. So I just want to thank you, sir, for being here on the program. It's been absolutely enlightening. And honestly, there's so much more I really want to dive in. We're being really, really gentle here, Travis, because we are not trying to give everything in the show away. But I will just say, in the 2 episodes that I saw, there are bizarre things that definitely appear to be recorded by you and your team, and definitely we'll look forward to finding out what those are all about. But again, Travis Taylor, thank you so much for being on here with me.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much.
I want to thank listeners for coming in here on this live broadcast. I want to thank the chat family. You guys know who you are. Thank everyone for listening. If you want to learn more about what I'm up to, you can always go to richardolanmembers.com or check out this YouTube channel. Remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other. Later, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.